Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to my channel. During this lifetime, people want to know things. At least, that's the common attitude. People want to know how things work. If you want to drive a car, you want to know how a car works. Obvious, right? But I'm not talking about technical stuff here. I'm talking about relationships. People want to know how relationships work. If you're new at a job, you want to know what the culture of the company is so you won't get into conflict with either the boss or with your fellow workers. So if there's a hierarchical structure with a distant attitude, you tend to comply so that things will work out for you. Why? You don't want to lose your job and get into financial trouble. So people want to know how things work. But here's a trap. People too often become too focused on having things working externally for them, that they don't look beyond what is working out for them, whether what's working out is going to benefit them or not. Like one example, you can have youngsters who want to have friends, just want to belong. You just want to belong to a group. They want to have their emotional needs met. So they can know how groups work and they can join a group, whether it's a cult or just a subculture, whatever it is. And things will work out externally for them. Some even find romantic partners within that group. But then they get a bit older. They pass the age of 24, 25, 26. The group begins to fall apart. And then they realize, hold on a minute, they haven't grown much since joining that group. And some that may have attained some romantic partners, they're not with those partners anymore. So now they're looking back and think, it wasn't such a wise decision to join that group. But at the time, they were 16, 17, they thought this is it. This is very important, they want to belong. So people want to know how things work. People don't want to be laughed at. For example, if you have a car that needs, let's say, diesel, you don't want to go to a gasoline shop and put gasoline in it. People are going to look at you and think, is this guy crazy or this woman crazy? Does she know this car needs diesel? So people don't want to be perceived as a fool. They don't want to be ridiculed, so they want to know how things work. And is there anything wrong with wanting to know how things work? No. But too often people lose perspective. And here is the trap. By wanting to know how things work, you look for knowledge. This is obvious, right? As a consequence, you want to hold on to that knowledge so you can use that knowledge. To some extent, there's something wrong with that. For example, how to drive a car, how to fish, or how to write a business letter. There's nothing wrong with gaining knowledge and holding on and preserving the knowledge. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But what if the knowledge you have is killing you? What if the knowledge you have is holding you back? What if the knowledge you have blinds you from looking at the bigger picture? In that case, that knowledge, despite the short-term advantages, is really a snare onto you. But you just can't see it's a snare onto you because there are short-term advantages that you experience. And because you and the people around you praise and acknowledge and celebrate those short-term advantages, you think everything is fine. But it's not. Just as I mentioned before in that example of those youngsters that joined groups, well, they were part of a group, they were not on the street causing trouble, they had good grades in school, also in college, people thought it's all right. But their knowledge kept them trapped. Their knowledge hindered them from growing socially, growing emotionally, because they remained in relief seeking. So they became more distant towards the outside world. And it's only later in their life that they will face difficulties of this. So the knowledge they had of how to comply and how to please other people, it worked. There were some short-term advantages that were quite pleasant, but it was a snare. This is why Scripture tells us not to rely on our own understanding. It's really Christ telling us to not rely on your own understanding. The New Testament makes plain that Christ has become our wisdom. what does that mean in practice? It means in practice that you depend on Christ for everything. Yes, you have your human knowledge, how to drive a car, how to write a business letter, how to fish. You have practical understanding, and there's nothing wrong with having those and gaining those. Okay, don't get me wrong here, there's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to life itself, you rely upon Christ. And the practical understanding you have, you use it in a Christ-centered manner. Okay, let me give a parable now. You have Jake. Jake completed an MBA education. He's now a businessman. During his education, he learned psychological tricks, how to trick the masses in buying his product. This is just economic knowledge that is being taught on many economic schools. Jake, during his college years, realized that hold on a minute, these emotional tricks also work easily on females. Well, not all females, but Jake found out it works quite easily. So Jake began to use it. Jake went from being a guy that was quite shy and didn't really want to open himself to others to someone that went to parties often. And every time he went to a party, man, he didn't hook up every time, but he approached the ladies easily. And he gained quite some friends because other guys that went to the clubs and to those parties, they were begging for attention of those women, but they never got it. And now Jake came in and man, Jake had 2-3 ladies around him. Again, he didn't hook up every time. He wasn't a sex addict or anything like that, but he got easy access to the females. Some of his fellow students even thought, Jake, how can you do that? So he got friends. He became more open. He didn't feel isolated anymore, didn't feel lonely anymore. So it worked. But some of you already see the trap here. He graduated. He got his job. Some of those females that he hooked up with, a few of them, well, he had short relationships. Some lasted 2 weeks, others lasted a month. Some of them didn't want to let him go. So now he was dealing with that. Some of them were lying about him to their new partners. So now those new partners now wanted to take out revenge on Jake. Or let me say they want to take revenge on Jake, that's a better expression. And many of those so-called friends he gained during his party time, man, he later found out that those guys were either drug dealers or they were into the criminal world. And some of them were really jealous of him. They just pretended to be friends of him. They weren't really friends at all. So now he has become a known figure among criminals, even though he's not a criminal himself. So all these side effects and other effects are now haunting Jake. But at the time, he realized that this business model that he learned also worked psychologically on people out there and on the opposite sex. When he found out that, when he realized this, it was as if, man, it was as if he got a new life. And things worked out. But because things worked out, he was blinded from looking beyond. So his own understanding was a curse in disguise. But because the curse in disguise, because it's a curse in disguise, because the curse was disguised by those short-term advantages, having new friends, so-called friends, easy access to the females, some relationships here and there, being praised and being popular, those short-term advantages blinded him completely. And other people around didn't see the danger also. In this case, Jake's own understanding was killing him. And there were times he was almost stabbed in those clubs because some of those jealous men wanted to take it out on him. But fortunately, though the divine intervention, because people were praying for him, it didn't work. He had a grandmother and a former classmate from high school were praying for him. That's why he wasn't stabbed. So, again, I used an extreme example here as a parable. But just understand, your own understanding can kill you. When human beings lack understanding, the mind fills it up. That's how the human mind is. But its filling up often goes along with deception. So it's not only the lack of knowledge that can be dangerous, but also what you know. If you don't know it in a Christ-centered context, Satan has access to you. And when he has access to you, believe me, he will use that access. But it will always be to destroy you. Well, that's why it's important to be renewed in your mind. Again, there's nothing wrong with wanting understanding, wanting knowledge, or having practical understanding of stuff. Just let Christ be the center. That's where real safety is. That being said, be at peace.